Good evening. It is great to be here this evening. It's great to be here back home with my home church and my home church family. I love Freed-Hardeman University. I have loved my time there. These last 3 months have been amazing. I've been in the presence of some truly amazing people, seen some truly great God-fearing people, made some great friends, some great memories, and I'm excited to go back. But it's also really awesome being able to come home. You know, you'd like to think that no matter where you go in life or what you do in life, you can always come home. And I'm lucky and fortunate that not only can I come home, but I can come home to a place where I can be accepted back with open arms. I'm really grateful for all the love and support that you've shown me throughout my life and at the start of my college journey. It's truly amazing to get to look out to the crowd and see so many people that have known me for pretty much my whole life and people that I've grown up with. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to speak here this evening. Being able to speak God's word is a big deal. It's not something that should be taken lightly by anybody. And I like to think I haven't taken this lightly. I've been thinking about this a lot, what I wanted to say here tonight, what I wanted to use with my time tonight. Because I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. There's an old saying that simply goes like this. There are only two things certain in life, death and taxes. I heard that a lot when I was a kid, and I thought it was pretty funny. It really amused me that people would put death on the same level as taxes when it comes to certainty. I mean, on one side you have death, something that we know for a fact is going to happen. Either we're going to die or God's going to come back. We know for a fact that's going to be the case. Putting that on the same level of certainty as taxes. Something that has been around for a while, is an everyday part of our lives. But it's not been around for the entire time, and there's no guarantee that that's going to last forever. Putting those on the same level of certainty, I always thought it was funny. And that got me to really start thinking about things that could fall into that same category of taxes. Things that in our lives are not necessarily universally certain. We universally know they're going to happen. That they've always been and they always will be. But things that feel that way. Things that we feel have been around forever. Things that we feel are universally true. Things that we feel that if we look at different cultures, through different time periods, through different socioeconomic statuses, we can see that this is true with all humans. Things that are human nature. One of the things that jumped out to me and that I thought of was simply this statement. Pretty much any time someone achieves a certain amount of glory, of money, worldly success, fame, riches, honor, they want to share their story with others. And if there's a certain product or process that got them there, they want to sell it. I mean, think about in your life. Think about times where good things have happened to you. You've gotten a promotion. Something's happened with your relationship or your family status. You've gotten money. You've gotten a cool gift. Was your first instinct to hide that and never tell anybody and keep that a secret? Or was your first instinct to tell people? For most of us, it's human nature. We want to share when good things happen to us. We want to say, look at me. Look at this good thing that's happened to me. Look at this success that I have. I want to tell you about it. Maybe it help you get it yourself. We see throughout different periods of history that this is human nature. I like to think back over 100 years ago to the Wild Wild West and that stereotype of the snake oil salesman who would go from camp to camp selling some sort of item, whether it be a medicine, some sort of drug, something to make you stronger, faster, quicker, selling people hope that they can make their life better. You fast forward a couple years, you get into the 1920s, the roaring 20s in America. And you have banks and other various companies going to people saying that you can buy anything you want to buy, all these new gadgets, all this new technology to make your life better, to make you more prosperous and successful. And you can just put it on credit. And you can buy anything that you want to buy. Fast forward 30 or 40 more years. The 1970s, the 1980s, the rise of televangelism. People getting on TV telling you that they can make your life better, that they found some secret to success, and they can give it to you. I remember I was little and I was watching one of those shows, and I remember the guy said that if I sent him $100 in the mail, I'd get $1,000 in return. And even as a young child, I just remember thinking that there's no way that could be true. Even today, with my generation, you see these things. I remember a couple years ago on YouTube, every time you got an ad, it was pretty much this guy, and he would talk about his mansion and his cars. He would talk about how he's achieved this and how you can get that too if you just go to his website and click the link. Or watch his video. The world is full of people that have achieved worldly success, and that want to say, hey, look at me, I've achieved this. Isn't that great? And hey, I can tell you how to be like me because you can have this success too. We see in the Bible many people that are spiritually successful, spiritually have riches, but they're poor from a worldly standpoint. When I say that, the first person I think of is Paul. If you were here for my lesson before I left for college, I talked about Paul and how his life was kind of a 180. When he was Saul persecuting the church, he had a worldly stature that was very high. Money, fame. He had influence. But his spiritual life was not where it needed to be. His spiritual life, he wasn't following God. He was persecuting his people. He wasn't doing what's right. When he's converted on the road to Damascus, he starts preaching God, it flips. Spiritually, he's great. He's high. He's a dedicated servant of God doing whatever it takes to serve him faithfully. But worldly, some bad things happen to him. Persecuted, stoned, shipwrecked, imprisoned. We see people in the Bible that have got riches from a spiritual standpoint, but are poor from a world standpoint. But we see other people in the Bible. We also see people that are rich from a spiritual standpoint and are rich from a worldly standpoint. They have it both. God has blessed them with worldly blessings. And when I think of a person that exemplifies that, I think of Solomon. If you will turn in your Bibles to 1 Kings chapter 10, I want to camp out here for a couple minutes and just go through some of the background and some of the information with Solomon. We see the beginning of 1 Kings chapter 1. King David is old. He's nearing death. They have somebody come in to take care of him. Being that the king of Israel and Judah is nearing death, that would obviously mean that a new king is going to be in line to take the throne. David's fourth son, Adonijah, out of his own arrogance, believes that it will be him. He goes around, unprovoked, telling people that he will be king, getting resources, getting men, getting a following. While this is happening, the prophet Nathan goes to Bathsheba and tells Bathsheba, hey, remember King David said that your son, Solomon, will be the king of Israel. So Bathsheba goes to David, and David ends up proclaiming Solomon king of Israel. So at the end of chapter 1, we are introduced to Solomon. We see that it creates this power struggle. On one side, Adonijah believes that he is the rightful king. On the other side, David and Solomon, and therefore God. We get to 1 Kings chapter 2. David gives advice to Solomon. He gives instruction, most of which kind of revolves around the idea of hold close to God, cling close to God. Let God be with you as you govern. After that, David dies. We see Solomon goes and he executes Adonijah and takes his rightful place as king. 1 Kings 3 is a very famous story in the Bible. It's where Solomon is gifted with wisdom. God goes to Solomon and says that he can have one gift. Solomon asks for wisdom, and God says in 1 Kings 3, verse 12, behold, I have done according to your words. See, I have given you a wise and understanding heart, so that there has not been anyone like you before you, nor shall there be anyone like you arise after you. And I have also given you what you have not asked, both riches and honor, so that there be not anyone like you coming into the kings of Israel in all your days. We see that God says that he will not only give Solomon wisdom, but riches and honor. We see that God says that he will bless Solomon from a worldly perspective. 1 Kings 4, we see details in Solomon's administration, and we truly get an idea for how vast it is. From a worldly standpoint, how blessed it is. 1 Kings 4, starting verse 22. And look at this carefully. Look at these listings. And you try to picture in your mind what this would look like. How much space this would take up. How awesome this would look. Now Solomon's provision for one day was 30 cores of fine flour, 60 cores of meal, 10 fatted oxen, 20 oxen from the pastures, and 100 sheep, besides deer, gazelles, roebucks, and fatted fowl. For he had dominion over all the region on this side of the river, from Tiphshah to Gaza, namely over all the kings on this side of the river. And he had peace on every side all around him. And Judah and Israel dwelt safely, each man under his vine and his fig tree, from Dan as far as Beersheba, all the days of Solomon. Some had 40,000 stalls of horses for his chariots, and 12,000 horsemen. And these governors, each man in his month, provided food for King Solomon for all who came to King Solomon's table. There was no lack in their supply. They also brought barley and straw to the proper place for the horses and seeds, each man according to his charge. And God gave Solomon wisdom and exceedingly great understanding and largeness of heart, like the sand on the seashore. Thus Solomon's wisdom excelled the wisdom of all the men of the east and all the wisdom of Egypt, for he was wiser than all men. then Ethan the Ezrahite, and Heman, and Chapel, and Darda, the sons of Mahal. And his fame was in all the surrounding areas. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs were 1,005. He spoke of trees, from the cedar tree of Lebanon, even to the hyssop that springs out of the wall. He spoke of animals, of birds, of creeping things, and of fish, and of men of all the nations. From all the kings of the earth who had heard his wisdom, came to hear the wisdom of Solomon. It's a very long passage, but it sets into perspective just how vast Solomon's earthly blessings, his earthly wealth was. We see all of these things that he has, all of this food, all of these livestock. We see that he has so much wisdom. He's blessed. He's well respected. He's feared. People look up to him as a leader. He's able to have peace for Israel and Judah. It says that people come from literally all around the world to hear the wisdom of Solomon. It puts into perspective how much Solomon had from a worldly perspective. How blessed he was from a materialistic way. 1 Kings 5 is the preparation of the temple. 1 Kings 6, 7, and 8 is the building of the temple, which is amazing, and you can look at some of the details for that. Not only how it's awesome because it's a place to worship God and for God's presence to be in, but also just for the sheer fact of the materials that it took. All the labor, all the materials, building materials, how expensive they were, how nice they were. It really puts again into perspective the wealth of Solomon. 1 Kings 9 and 10 talk about Solomon's other achievements and how he has many more achievements. From exchanging gifts with Hiram to being praised by the Queen of Sheba to even having God come to him again. We see from the first 10 chapters of 1 Kings that God truly blesses Solomon. From a worldly perspective, he has about everything. I say that, and I go through all of this to simply make this point. We see that God blesses Solomon immensely from a worldly perspective. He had so much success, so much wealth, so much respect with everybody. If there's anybody in the Bible that would write one of these self-help books, if there's anybody in the Bible that would go out and say, hey, look at me. Look at all that I've accomplished. Look at all this materials I have. Look at all this wealth, this livestock, this respect. Look at how awesome it is. Look at how great it is. It's a great life, and I can tell you how to be that way. I can show you how to be like me. If anybody in the Bible were to write a book like that, I would venture to say that it would be Solomon. I believe, and I think I can make the argument, that he would be blessed like that. One of the most wealthy kings throughout history. So that brings up the question, if Solomon's the prime candidate to write this book, then where is it? Where is Solomon's self-help book? Well, the simple fact is, it doesn't exist. We don't see that. After the first 10 chapters of 1 Kings, in 1 Kings 11, we immediately see that Solomon, through all of these worldly blessings, has his heart turned from God. All of these materialistic things that God has given him, it turns his heart away. He gets a lust for foreign women, for money, for greed. So Solomon doesn't write that book. In fact, we don't see a book in the Bible from Solomon telling us how to be like him. We see a book in the Bible from Solomon that does the exact opposite. That warns about his life. You will turn your Bibles to Ecclesiastes, and we're going to spend the rest of our time this evening looking through here. Solomon wrote this book. And as a man who achieved so much worldly success, had so much wealth, so much respect, so much fame, writing this book, the contents of it are not what you would expect. Ecclesiastes 1, starting in verse 1, says, "These are the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What profit has a man for all of his labor, in which he toils under the sun? One generation passes away, and another generation comes. But the earth abides forever. The sun also rises, and the sun goes down, and hastens to the place where it arose. The wind goes towards the south, and it turns around to the north. The wind whirls about continually, and comes again on its circuit. All the rivers run into the sea. Yet the sea is not full. To the place from which the rivers come, and they return again, and all things are full of labor. Man cannot express it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. That which has been is what will be, that which is done is what will be done. And there is nothing new under the sun." Is there anything of which you may have said, see, this is new? It has already been in ancient times before us. There is no remembrance of former things, nor will there be any remembrance of things that are to come by those who come after. We see in the intro to Ecclesiastes, this is not a self-help book. This is not a, look at me, look at what I've achieved, here's how to do it type of book. We see it's the exact opposite. Solomon is talking about the vanity of life. How everything is passing away. It's just grasping for the wind. There's nothing new under the sun. Solomon is not speaking to us as a man who wants us to follow his ways. He's speaking to us as a man who warns us about the danger of the life that he's lived. Let me give more details in Ecclesiastes 2, starting in verse 1. It says, I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure, but surely there also is vanity. I said of laughter, madness, and of mirth, what does it accomplish? I searched in my heart how to gratify my flesh with wine, while guiding my heart with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the sons of men to do under heaven all the days of their lives. I made my works great. I built myself houses. I planted myself vineyards. I made myself gardens and orchards, and I planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made myself water pools from which to water the growing trees of the grove. I acquired male and female servants, and had servants born in my house. Yes, I had greater possessions of herds and of flocks than of all who were in Jerusalem before me. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and special treasures of kings and of provinces. I acquired male and female singers, the delights of the sons of men, and musical instruments of all kinds. So I became great and excelled more than all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I did not withhold my heart from my pleasure, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor. And this was my reward for all my labor. Then I looked on the works that my hands had done, and on the labor in which I had toiled. And indeed, all was vanity and grasping for the wind. There was no profit under the sun. Solomon again gives a long, detailed list of all the worldly blessings he's had. He said that he tries to fill that void with mirth, which can also be translated as joy, and that doesn't work. He tries to fill himself with wine, and that doesn't work. It says that he built the biggest houses and had the biggest vineyards. Solomon had those mansions. He had that mansion on the hills with the big backyard, and that didn't work. Solomon says that he had water pools. He had the fancy pool, he had the hot tub, and that wasn't enough. It said that he had male and female servants in a great number. He had enough people to do any labor for him. He didn't have to clean his house, he didn't have to cook for himself, he didn't have to do anything physically that he didn't want to do. But that wasn't enough for him. It said that he had more herds and flocks than all who were in Jerusalem. So he had a ton of animals for eating and a ton of animals for transportation. He could go to any restaurant he wanted to, and he could drive any car he wanted to. And that still wasn't enough. We see that he had a bunch of silver and gold and special treasures. He had the money, he had the diamonds, he had the special collector's items. That wasn't enough. He had male and female singers, the best and most renowned throughout all the land. He had the concerts. He didn't have to go to the fancy concerts to hear the world's best singers. They came to them. He could sit in his house and listen to the most famous, the most well-known singers perform concerts for them. The best entertainment in the world known to man would come to him, and that wasn't enough. It says that he became known throughout more than land. He had the reputation. He had that name recognition. He had the legacy. And that still wasn't enough. We went through the whole 10 chapters of 1 Kings looking at all the worldly blessings that Solomon had. All the access to everything that he had. It says that whatever he did, whatever he wanted, he didn't withhold it from himself. Solomon, one of the richest men that we read about and we see in history. He didn't withhold himself from anything. He had access to more than pretty much I can guarantee any of us will ever have. And that still was not enough for him. So I asked the question of Solomon, who had all of these things. He had the money. He had the fame. He had the big houses. He had the name recognition. He could go to all the entertainment places. And none of it was good for him. None of it was enough for him. So if we in our lives are trying to get one of those things, if we in our lives are putting money first, putting our job first, getting the biggest house first, or having a big car collection first. How would that sustain us? How would that be enough for us? So Solomon had every single one of those things, and it still was not enough for him. We see that Solomon has everything that you could want. Literally, he could get anything from a worldly perspective, and it still wasn't enough. We see in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, he has this poem about time. He talks about how there's a time for everything. He goes through all this list of things and talks about time. We live in a world that is bound by time. Pretty much everything, if not everything in our life, is dictated by time. We have a time to go to worship. We're going to have a time where we go and eat dinner. A time to go to sleep, a time to wake up. A time to go to work, a time to go to school. A time to live, a time to have a family, a time to have leisure. We have a lifespan, the amount of time we're going to be on this earth. But we serve a God who is not bound by time. We have so much little time. It reminds me in James chapter 4, starting in verse 13. It says, "Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city, spend a year there and buy and sell and make a profit. Whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away." We see that we have such little time on this earth. Our time is a vapor. We're completely bound by it. We're completely beholden to time. We serve a God who is above time, who created time and is not bound by time. In Ecclesiastes 5, starting in verse 10, it says, "He who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver, nor he who loves abundance with increase. This is also vanity. When goods increase, they increase who eat them. So what profit have their owners except to see them with their eyes? The sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eats little or much. For the abundance of the rich will not permit him to sleep. There is a severe evil which I have seen under the sun. Riches kept for their owner to his hurt. And those riches perish through misfortune. When he begets a son, there is nothing in his hand. And he has come from his mother's womb. Naked shall he return, to go as he came, and he shall take nothing from his labor." Solomon says here that if our priority is worldly things, it will never be enough. When our priority is silver and gold, it'll never be enough. We'll never make enough. If our priority is our work, even if our priority is things that are not necessarily evil, but not of God, if it's not about God, it's never going to be enough. Whether that be money, school, work, family, anything. Solomon says that that will not be enough. And he makes the point that we can't take any of it with us. No matter what time we've lived, what we have, even our eternal destination, nobody is ever going to be able to take anything from this world with them. We see Solomon, this man who had so many riches, was blessed so much from a worldly perspective. Instead of writing one of those self-help books, showing us how to be like him, showing us how to get those riches like he gets those riches, he says it's all vanity, it's all grasping for the wind. Lucky for us, though, that is not what the entire book of Ecclesiastes is. Ecclesiastes is not just Solomon saying that there's no hope, everything is vanity, it's all grasping for the wind. Solomon does have some advice for us. Through a life of being king, one of the most famous men in the history of the world, having more wisdom given by God than any man to come before him or after him, having so much worldly blessings, we see Solomon, throughout all of this life experience, all this wisdom, has some advice he wants us to take away. If you will turn to Ecclesiastes 11, into the chapter, verse 9. It says, "Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart, and in the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these, God will bring you into judgment. Therefore, remove sorrow from your heart, and put away evil from your flesh, for childhood and youth are vanity. Remember now your Creator in the days of your youth, before the difficult times come, and the years draw near when you say, I have no pleasure." He continues in verses 2 through 8, talking and comparing naturalistic things of this world, saying that we need to follow God before this happens, or before this happens. Solomon says that we need to remember God when we were young. We see back in 1 Kings, Solomon was faithful to God when he became king. Then had his heart turned away, had much sorrow, had much pain. It's recorded throughout the Bible. Solomon says that while we are young, as early as we can in our life, grasp God, hold close to God, cling to Jesus. We see Solomon forsake God, and it brought him pain. He says that we need to cling to God when we are young. I've heard a lot of times people get up in this pulpit and say something to the effect of, we were never promised an easy life as a Christian. Just because you're a Christian and you're a person of God, don't think that God will prevent you from seeing any heartache or any suffering in this world. Just because we're a Christian, just because we've been baptized, don't think as soon as you get baptized that you won't have any suffering. And that's true. As a Christian in this world, we will have hurt, we will have pain. But I want to submit to you this evening. Being a Christian is the best life. Being a Christian is a life that will forsake you more suffering and pain. We will have more pain, more heartache, more suffering if we forsake God in our life than be with God. If you forsake God, if you don't follow God, if you're not faithful to Him in your youth, teenage years, 20s, even going all throughout your life, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, if we're not faithful to God, we will have much heartache, much hurt brought upon us. We will look back at our lives as we are faithful, look back at that times of unfaithfulness, and we will see hurt, regret. Times we've been mean to people, times that we've let people down, times that we've sinned against God, times that we've seen others in public, and that we've done something against God's word, and that's how they remember us by. We'll be sad thinking about our times of unfaithfulness. Know that there are people in this world that think bad of us. People in this world that think we are bad people, we've done bad things, and we haven't exemplified Christ when we were younger and we weren't doing right things. And that will cause us much pain and much heartache. Solomon says to cling close to God as soon as you can, early in your life. And it will save you heartache. We also see in Ecclesiastes 4, Solomon gives us a second piece of advice. Starting in verse 9, it says, 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. Again, if 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? Though one may be overpowered by another, 2 can withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. Solomon tells us, in our Christian walk with God, we need to have people that we can trust. Have people that we can lean on. Have people that we can go to. Talk about good things, talk about bad things, confide in them. Talk about our sins. I think sometimes a mistake that we make in the church, some of us may make, is we go in here, we come to worship. We like to pretend that we're above sin, that there's nothing going on in our lives, that we're not struggling with anything. We put on that mask, we tell people we're okay, we tell people that there's nothing wrong in our lives, we're not struggling with any sin, we don't need any help. Then we go, talk to our friends, talk to people in the church, we try to pretend that they don't need help, we try to pretend that they're okay, we just go and leave. Solomon says that we need to find people to confide in. We need to know that we're not alone. And trust me, as many times as you go throughout your life, and you may think it, you truly are not alone. Sin is tempting for a reason. There is only one man who has ever lived on this earth that has never sinned. Jesus Christ. By proxy of that, that means that every single one of us that are not Jesus Christ have sinned. We struggle with sin. We have things in our life that we struggle with. Whether we struggle with it in the past, or we're struggling with it now, or we struggle with it in the future. And I'm pretty sure that for most of us at least, we fall into all 3 categories. We struggle with sin in our life, we're struggling with sin now, and we struggle with sin in the future. It's not something that we should hide, and never tell anybody, and act like it doesn't exist, and never seek help. Solomon says to go to somebody, have a friend. Because if you're alone and you fall into sin, there's going to be no one to help pick you up. But if you're with a friend, if you have somebody that you can confide in, when you fall into sin, they can be there, they can pick you up. And when you're feeling strong and they're feeling weak, you can go and pick them up. He says a threefold cord is not quickly broken. If we have a group of people that we can confide our sins in, bare our souls to, and that they can help us into our lives that will create a strong bond of Christians. Christianity was not a race meant to be run alone. We were meant to run it side by side with our brothers and sisters, to have people that we can confide in, to have people that we can tell our darkest secrets to, have people that we can talk about when we're struggling with sin instead of hiding it, bottling it up, and act like it doesn't exist. Solomon says that we need to have people in our lives that can help us run the Christian race. And finally, Solomon has his ultimate advice. A lifetime of ruling, being blessed worldly, following God, and then forsaking God. Asking for wisdom, being the wisest man that's ever lived on this earth outside Jesus Christ. All of these life experiences have led Solomon to one final conclusion. It's the end of the book. Ecclesiastes 12, starting in verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is man's all. Solomon, the man who had it all. The man who had all the wealth you could ever imagine. That man says that man's all is to fear God and keep his commandments. The man who had more worldly possessions than we could ever hope to dream of. He says that that's not man's all. Man's all is fearing God and keeping his commandments. And in the very last verse of Ecclesiastes, he says why? Because God will bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. We see that there's a judgment day coming. There's a time where Jesus will come back. God will judge us for everything we've done in our life, whether good or evil. So we need to fear God and we need to keep his commandments. The time's coming. So what state is your soul in tonight? Maybe you're not a Christian. You don't know much about Jesus. You haven't been baptized. I strongly encourage you to go to somebody, whether it be a leader in this church or a close friend who's a Christian. Ask them about Jesus. Ask them about his saving blood. And if you've done that and you feel like you're ready to come forward and be baptized, I encourage you to do that tonight. Perhaps you're struggling. Perhaps you're letting the vanity of the world overshadow the victory in Jesus Christ. That was the topic of our lesson this evening. Vanity versus victory. We have to choose one. Are we going to choose the vanity of the world or the victory of Jesus? If you've been choosing vanity, perhaps you want to repent. You've been making some mistakes. Like we said, this Christian life isn't easy. Maybe you've fallen short and you need help and you want to publicly confess in front of your brothers and sisters. And I would encourage you to come forward and do that as well. Or maybe you're in a position where you are struggling. You do need help. You do need a friend. You do need someone there that can pick you up. I encourage you after services tonight to go to somebody. If you're struggling and you don't want to talk about it publicly and come forward, I encourage you to go to somebody that you trust. A friend, a parent, a sibling, even a child, even your children. Go to somebody that's a leader in this church, maybe a friend that you have that doesn't live here that's a Christian. Go and find that person that you can confide in, that you can talk about your sin with. If you're struggling in that way. Or if you have anything else that we need to help you with, please come forward as we stand and as we sing.